Everyone around you has one. Your friends, your coworkers, your siblings, maybe even your parents. But you've never gotten a tattoo. And it's not because you haven't thought about it. You've thought about it plenty. But something always stops you. And you can't quite explain why. This is the psychology of people who never get tattoos. And it goes much deeper than, "I just don't like needles." Let me explain. Let's start with the obvious. Some people don't get tattoos because they're afraid of commitment. Not the needle. The permanence. A tattoo is forever. And for some people, forever is the scariest word in any language. What if you change? What if you regret it? What if who you are in 10 years looks at that tattoo and cringes? This fear isn't about ink. It's about identity. People who avoid permanent decisions often struggle with the idea that they're allowed to commit to who they are right now. Because what if this version of them isn't the final version? What if they're still becoming? The tattoo feels like freezing yourself in time. And some people aren't ready to be frozen. Here's another pattern. You don't feel strongly enough about anything. Tattoos are statements. They say, "This matters so much to me that I want it on my body forever." But what if nothing feels that important? What if you like things, but you don't love things? What if your passions are quiet, not loud? People who don't get tattoos often have a rich inner world that doesn't need external expression. They don't need to show the world who they are. They know who they are. And that's enough. The absence of a tattoo isn't emptiness. It's contentment with being unannounced. Here's a deeper layer. Some people don't get tattoos because they don't feel ownership of their own body. This sounds strange, but stay with me. If you grew up in an environment where your body wasn't fully yours, where boundaries were crossed, where you learned to disconnect from your physical self, the idea of permanently marking that body feels wrong. Not exciting. Violating. Like writing on something that doesn't belong to you. For these people, the resistance to tattoos isn't aesthetic. It's protective. The unmarked body is the safe body. The one that hasn't been claimed by anything or anyone. Here's another angle. You're a perfectionist. And perfectionism is the enemy of permanent decisions. What if the design isn't right? What if the placement is wrong? What if the artist makes a mistake? What if it doesn't heal perfectly? There are too many variables. Too many ways it could go wrong. And for a perfectionist, good enough isn't good enough. So they wait. They research. They save Pinterest boards for years. And they never actually do it. Because the perfect tattoo doesn't exist. And anything less than perfect feels like failure. Here's something most people don't consider. Some people don't get tattoos because they're already carrying marks they didn't choose. Scars, stretch marks, skin conditions, burns. Their body already tells a story they didn't write. Adding more marks voluntarily. That feels like adding noise to a narrative that's already complicated enough. For these people, unmarked skin is precious. It's the only part of the story that's still blank. And they want to keep it that way. Here's another pattern. You don't trust your own judgment. Getting a tattoo requires confidence. Confidence in your taste. Confidence in your decisions. Confidence that you know yourself well enough to choose something permanent. But what if you don't trust yourself? What if your history is full of decisions you regret? What if you've changed your mind so many times that you don't believe your own opinions anymore? The refusal to get a tattoo becomes self-protection. I can't mess up a decision I don't make. It's not indecisiveness. It's learned caution from a history of regret. Here's a different perspective. Some people don't get tattoos because they're rebels. Yes, rebels. Think about it. Tattoos used to be rebellion. Now they're mainstream. Everyone has one. Your accountant has a sleeve. Your grandmother has a butterfly. For some people, not having a tattoo is the new counterculture. It's the statement that says, I don't follow trends, not even the trend of being trendy. The blank skin becomes the rebellion. The unmarked body becomes the statement. Here's something quieter. Some people don't get tattoos because they already feel permanent. They don't need a reminder of who they are. They don't need symbols to anchor them. They don't need external marks to feel like themselves. Their identity isn't in question. So why add decoration to something that's already complete? The absence of a tattoo isn't a void. It's wholeness. Here's another layer. You're keeping your options open. Not because you're indecisive, but because you value flexibility. Some career paths still judge tattoos. Some cultures still stigmatize them. Some future versions of your life might be easier without visible ink. Choosing not to get a tattoo is sometimes just practical, strategic, a calculated decision to not close doors you might want to walk through later. That's not fear. That's foresight. Here's the deepest pattern. Some people don't get tattoos because they're still waiting to feel at home in their own skin. The body doesn't feel like theirs yet. Maybe it's dysmorphia. Maybe it's dysphoria. Maybe it's just a lifelong disconnection that never got a name. Decorating a house you don't feel like you live in. That doesn't make sense. First, you need to move in. First, you need to feel like you belong there. The tattoo can come later. Maybe. Or maybe the belonging itself will be enough. Here's what I want you to know. Not having a tattoo doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're boring. It doesn't mean you're scared. It doesn't mean you lack passion or commitment or identity. It means your skin tells a different story. One written in absence rather than ink. And absence can be just as meaningful. Sometimes, what we don't do defines us as much as what we do. The unmarked body is still a body with a story. It's just a quieter story. One that doesn't need to be read from across the room. One that's written in choices rather than symbols. One that says, I'm complete without adding anything. And that's not emptiness. That's peace. Before you go, tell me, do you have tattoos? Or are you tattoo-free? And if you've never gotten one, do you now understand why? Drop it in the comments. And if you've ever felt like you needed to explain why you don't have any ink, comment. My skin tells its own story. Let's see how many of us are writing our stories in silence. You don't need to mark yourself to know who you are. You already know, and that's enough.